going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster back here on this, what is it, Friday? It is, no, Thursday. Goodness, I was jumping ahead. Thursday, August 17th, 2023, about 10:14 a.m. here, California time. And got some activity really ramping up out here across the globe currently with a 6.0 out in the central mid-Atlantic ridge here in the purple circle. Also got some activity stirring up there across Colombia currently with another 6.0 it looks like in this area. USGS not picking up on it yet, but it is showing up here across the map here from the EMSC model, showing that 6.0 striking just after, shortly thereafter, the 6-pointer out in the Atlantic Ocean. So let's go ahead and see what's going on here from the USGS. We'll get to the Hawaii area in just a little bit. Movement clustering big time here across the region of the Fiji Islands area. There's that 6-pointer out in the Atlantic. Again, just coming in, looks like about 40 minutes or so ago, 45 minutes. And waiting to see what the USGS picks up on here for us, that 6-pointer in Colombia. But for now, what the USGS is showing is a pretty good cluster here. We're talking about a huge cluster of deep earthquakes across the Tonga Trench here. This is pretty interesting. It's been a while since we've seen this multitude of quakes in a short amount of time, so that could spell some trouble out here across the area, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands area, where that typical plate boundary tends to transfer some energy. So we'll watch this area across the quiet zones for now with this kicking up. The last one in the Tonga area looks like a 5.2, somewhat shallow upstream here. Most of the deeper activity down there below 500 kilometers, so definitely adds some further strain upstream, but also at the same time that momentum from the Pacific plate generally transfers to the northwest around this plate boundary. But of course, always got to watch the upper levels of the subduction zones. The Big Island of Hawaii, got a little bit of activity out there today, as we've had in the last couple days. The latest at 2.0. Overnight now, it looks like the last earthquake was reported at 1928. Now, I believe that is false. Am I calling the USGS out on that? Potentially, because I have seen some earthquakes out there on their stations without it being reported. So what I want to do is double check the recorded seismograph stations there at Kilauea Volcano, and then we'll go from there. So we've got to go to the site first and check it out. This is the usgs.gov Volcano's Kilauea site. Volcano over here is the one that we're monitoring to get rid of some of this clutter. We don't want GPS, gas cam, or tilt meters. We want these seismograph stations, and as you can see, most of those are in some triangles out here. And we're just going to check out a couple of these locally across where this earthquake swarm has been taking place to see if earthquake activity has calmed down or not. So here's the past 12 hours. They're stating the last earthquake was just about, what was that, 17. Looks like they added a couple more on there. 22:30. Well, what in the world? Did you guys notice that? When I just checked a second ago here, it showed the last earthquake from yesterday, aside from one. So, goodness, what's going on here? Twilight zone. So it looks like there was a little bit more earthquake activity reported here. Not for sure how I missed that, but either way, looking at the seismograph stations, where'd they run off to? Today Monday or Thursday? Didn't really get too much sleep last night. Kind of been up most of the night here debating on going down to SoCal area. Alright, so here's the last 12 hours once again. Definitely some earthquake activity out here. That's going to be the well-defined spikes, but also magma movement, and that's what we see right here in the thicker color lines that are a little bit more drawn out. It's just not a sudden release of energy. It's more of a thickness across the graph that indicates magma movement. And there's quite a few periods here overnight where we did see that. So continue to watch this here throughout the day today, as things could be getting ready to ramp up, or maybe they have already. Let's see the latest crater webcam, notice the smoke is getting a little bit thicker out here across that area of Kilauea Volcano, and that's obviously a sign that magma is getting, finding a way to the surface. And in this case, it looks like it's still going to be around the lava lake area where it has been over the past couple eruptions, just kind of filling up that lake. I guess that's the easiest route of travel for the magma currently. But as you can see, smoke coming up. Not for sure how far below the surface this magma is, but I don't think it's that far. So we should see stuff popping up here soon. Let me see what the latest informational statement shows for the volcano there. Yeah, it still has one from yesterday, so it doesn't look like they put out a recent one yet for today, but they are doing the daily updates due to the elevated activity there at Kilauea Volcano. So we're continue to watch that, and of course we'll keep an eye on the webcams out there, because that's obviously a good indicator of activity potentially reaching the surface with that smoke coming up. USGS not picking up on the Columbia quake yet. That was a 6.0. Now the closest station I have to that area would be that'll probably be the station there in Chile. I don't really see it on the graph here, but we'll check that out here in a couple minutes, see if it pops up or not. All right, so what else we got? Anything going on across New Zealand? Let's double check that here real quick. Go back over here to their main site, and we'll see what we got. 2.1 from yesterday, a couple days ago there. It just doesn't look like there's too much activity stirring up right now. This 4.8 way up there into the Tonga Trench area. Looks like they're reporting that as a 4.8, 100 kilometers deep. 2.2 outside of Taupo super volcano. Aside from that, things look generally light across the area today of New Zealand. Things look, absolutely fairly quiet here. Some activity from yesterday, but as you can see, most of the graphs here today look pretty calm. 5.2 Tonga. All right, let's see what else we have here. Let's check out the West Coast, California-wise. Been watching a little bit of activity stirring up here off the San Andreas Fault on the Pacific side of the plate boundary. That's going to be this movement here outside of Desert Hot Springs and areas down south here. So see if we got anything specific overnight in this area. Looks like a couple more just after midnight, some smaller quakes still within this area that, I think would show some signs of movement and some swarming prior to the big one, just due to the transfer of energy in this area off the San Andreas Fault. But for now, a couple smaller quakes. We'll continue to watch that for some movement. There's that earthquake offshore yesterday, 3.4. Let's look at the bigger picture here and bring up 2.5 and above, see what we have. Just that one from yesterday. So all these earthquakes listed up here on the map are below that threshold, indicating some microquake activity. One earthquake north of San Francisco here, 1.4, just off the San Andreas Fault, northern segment here. And let's see, extreme northern California, 2.3 outside of the Mount Shasta area, definitely southeast, a good distance. 2.3 and a 1.7. Pacific Northwest, a little spotty activity here across the Cascades. Not really seeing anything major going on up there today. Oklahoma, Texas, all the oil fields are getting hit. Down here south of San Antonio as well. 2.6 coming in earlier. Late last night it looks like. Let's see what we got out there in the beautiful state of Texas. Kind of hard to tell sometimes. Out there looking at the land maps. I know there's some oil fields out here. They're a little peppered out across the landscape here, but Looks like maybe some of those are starting to get hit. And I know over here southeast of San Antonio, definitely got quite a few of them. A little spotty activity across Oklahoma, outside of Woodward, Oklahoma as well. Some small microquakes going on. The new Madrid seismic zone, quiet. Eastern portion of the country, pretty quiet too. As far as the Caribbean plate goes, looks like we did have some movement overnight near northern Colombia. Of course, still waiting on this one from the EMSC. They're reporting some activity down there. Let me refresh this and see what it looks like on their map. Colombia 6.3 is what they're reporting here for this earthquake just a few minutes ago. Still 6-pointer out there. Really surprised USGS hasn't picked up on that yet. If that is indeed a 6.3, looks like a felt earthquake in Colombia. National Earthquake Information Center from the USGS. Source parameters provided by, but there we go. As soon as I read it, it comes about. It took them a little bit to post it on their own map here, but it's up there. 6.3, pretty good size earthquake out there. And this earthquake follows, it looks like, some movement again prior last night, some deeper activity. So some strain building up here across areas of the Colombian Trench subduction zone here. So keep an eye on that. It's a pretty good sized earthquake there. See if we've got any information on it. Has been reviewed. That's why it's now published to the area. A few folks reported feeling that earthquake out there. Not for sure what the population density is, but these areas here reporting some various felt reports there from the USGS. 6.3 in Colombia. Isn't that crazy? Just a little short time after this divergent boundary, we get some activity stirring up here. This region here where we've seen the 6-pointer here in the Atlantic shows a divergent boundary. Notice the separation of the arrows. That's the oceanic crust out here. That would kind of make sense, right? To see a little bit more strain up here. South America plate normally tends to go north in a north fashion here. That's a general GPS motion of the plate here. The arrows pointing in that direction. So that definitely could squeeze the area slightly, adding further strain. So we'll definitely watch the Caribbean plate here throughout the days ahead. Maybe for some further movement, because 6.3, that's some good buildup right there. All right, and of course we got the movement down here across Tonga right now. A little bit of activity up here in the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench from yesterday. Still watching this area here, but for now things a little on the quiet side. Alaska area, mostly smaller microquakes. Handful of other quakes down here, 4.0 just off the Aleutian Trench from yesterday as well. Let's see here. I know we're kind of doing a zigzag pattern all over the place here. That's kind of how I feel today. A little bit of a zigzag train of thought right now. 4.7 from yesterday in Chile. Look at that. That's a lot of earthquake activity. Goodness. All right. See if EMSC is reporting anything that we may need to watch across the Mediterranean. Looks like a handful of smaller quakes out here today. The earthquake 3D globe going to show that as well. Not seeing anything drastic going on out here. Of course, divergent boundary, right, does add some strain both sides of the plates here, but it looks like most of the buildup here is across the Colombia area and across the South America region. But we could see things kick up here in the next 24 hours or so across the Mediterranean. A little bit of activity across the Java Trench today. Nothing major going on there. 5.3 earlier this morning. So momentum, right? And stress built up, I'm sure, out here across Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands. We'll keep an eye on that. That's a lot of deeper activity here across Tonga. Is that 4.7 Middle America Trench? Okay, let's see. Let's go over here to the Yellowstone overviews. I just want to double check that because it's always a good area to keep an eye on. Right now, nothing going on for the most part. Only a handful of very small microquakes there across Yellowstone National Park. All right, space weather activity here. Really haven't seen too much in the way of solar flare activity. That's due to the lack of sufficient complex sunspots out here. We do have quite a few sunspots, but they are fairly stable, behaving fairly nicely as well. If any regions may need some watching, it might need down here across this area, looking a little bit more dynamic in terms of complexity, but for the most part, everything's remaining fairly stable. Even since last night, things do not look all that complex out there with the sunspots. So therefore, the flare threat looks like 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 15, X flare around 5%. I think these are just a little inflated slightly. I don't really see any complex structure out there within the sunspot cores. So that means calm conditions there prevailing across the Aurora forecast for now. Storm Prediction Center out here, this is fairly calm. There's not a whole lot of severe weather potential. Yes, broad area of thunderstorm activity across the desert southwest with only a 2% chance for tornado probabilities around there. Looks like the Allentown, Pennsylvania area. Wind, even wind and hail threats very minimal, so that's kind of a quiet day in terms of weather. Now looking at, I'm going to pull up the current Atlantic Pacific satellite view. There's our hurricane down here, Hurricane Hilary. Let's see what the latest information here is with regards to Hurricane Hilary, which is officially a hurricane, it looks like, as of right now. I think that might be maybe a little ahead of time. This thing, again, it's worth watching that this thing could potentially grow a little bit more in strength and become more of a nuisance for the Southern California area. Right now, Hurricane Hilary is at 85 miles per hour sustained winds. So definitely getting up there in the category, in the hurricane status. It is moving off towards the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. Looks like these guys have revised the landfall time frame. They're in Southern California to Monday at 6 a.m. I think last night this was 6 p.m., I believe. Unless I ventured off into a different dimension, but I'm pretty certain that this was 6 p.m. last night that it was showing. So either way, landfall looks like it is still on forecast here to reach this area. It's a tropical storm for Southern California. Here's the next 3 days. Sunday 6 a.m. here just off the Baja California region. Currently, I don't think we have any warnings out here as far as any watches or warnings go. Now we got tropical storm down here off the tip of Baja California area. It's going to be a tropical storm warning. Tropical storm watch a little bit further inland. Nothing for Southern California currently. Let's check out the weather models and see what we have for the latest projected areas. We're going to go here to the western states. Here's California. Here's all the pressure differences and the lines and the freezing layer and average precipitation rate here on the map. So we're going to kick this into view. Notice that we're still getting that line of storms coming up prior to the arrival of the hurricane there in Southern California. Kind of a big deal. I'm going to drop this just a little bit. That way we can see the whole image. And, this is going to be, it looks like, the storms are going to start firing up. It looks like into Saturday. Sunday is going to be a very wet day before the brunt of the system comes. Now, right now, looking at this model compared to last night, it's leaning a little bit more towards the Los Angeles area. It looks like it has shifted a little bit to the west, which would put more of a population under risk here for some heavy rainfall out there. And that all has to do with the high pressure system out here. Notice these lines here from the high pressure way out in the Pacific. That could, depending on that position, could scoot it further east or west. And in this case, it looks like the forecast models are wanting to bring this hurricane here slightly more west, just a hair. But that will put San Diego, Los Angeles area into some very wet conditions here. And of course, generally, Southern California here is going to get quite the whopping of precipitation. The Sierra Nevada as well. So that is the latest forecasted model with a landfall just off the coast here of San Diego with the area of circulation. You can see rainfall rates. Let's double check that and see what we got for precipitation. Total accumulated precipitation amounts here from the Hurricane Hilary, still quite impressive. Yeah, very impressive still. Looks like maybe a slight drop from yesterday, but I still see some orange in there, which would indicate between probably 8 to 9 inches of rainfall in certain regions. Los Angeles, San Diego area are kind of in the a different area, maybe between 4 and 5 inches it looks like for this area. That's still quite a bit of rainfall. And again, this all depends on how strong this hurricane gains its strength before reaching landfall. And it has a lot to do with the high pressure systems out here in the Pacific and also out over here that will direct where this hurricane will take its path. But right now, look at the valley up here, up where I'm at. A rain shadow and not a sprinkle. That's that clear area right there. Not cool. I wouldn't mind this thing scooting over a little bit more to hit Northern California. So still haven't made up my mind yet if I am going to go down there. I did get a few folks offering me a base out there to do my reporting from, and I appreciate that. I haven't got a chance to email you folks yet, but I will definitely keep that in mind, that the folks that did offer to provide an area of operations, so to speak. I'm pretty surprised to open my email this morning and see all the offers down there. Some good people. I appreciate it. And I'll let you know if I do require or could use the services down there. But right now, that's the latest information here. I am going to bring up a secondary live stream here that's going to be showing the current information on Hurricane Hilary and also current satellite imagery that will be updated every few minutes or so, and also live radar for the Southern California area. Here is your latest flash flooding potential here. I'm going to bring this up, see if they have that listed. Here is it's actually a discussion here from the National Hurricane Center showing the potential risk of flash flooding. And as you can see, Southern California is in a good area, a wide area of the flooding potential. The main regions, it looks like, is right around the Salton Sea area, San Andreas Fault, right there in the southern segment. I mean, we're going to see if all this rainfall is going to lubricate that fault system down there, the plate boundary, and kick off the big one. It'll be a neat little observation and study if that is the case with all this rainfall. If this doesn't trigger the San Andreas Fault with all this rainfall coming in, then I don't know what will. Looks like a good portion here across that area, at least 40% moderate risk of flash flooding. Here's their maximum rainfall rates out here, inches. I believe this is the total accumulated precipitation amount. They're stating between 4 to 6 inches here in these areas, just outside San Diego, stretching up into that region of the Salton Sea area and the San Andreas Fault, which sits right in this area. Of course, travels all the way up here off the coast or within the coast. But yeah, that's kind of a lot of rainfall here. Key messages that was put out this morning from the National Hurricane Center. Heavy rainfall associated with Hilary may produce areas of flash flooding and result in landslides over portions of Baja California Peninsula from late Friday into late Sunday. Rainfall impacts from Hilary within the southwestern United States are expected to peak this weekend into Monday. Flash urban flooding is possible with the potential for significant impacts. Hilary has the potential to bring significant impacts to the Baja California Peninsula and portions of the southwest here. So large swells could be possible as well as Hilary heads northward along the coast of southwestern Mexico and the Baja California Peninsula during the next several days. So we'll continue to watch that. But I am going to bring up a secondary live stream that will be continuously covering this activity with updates. Updates on the satellite map, radar imagery, and informational statements are going to be almost like every few minutes. So that's coming up here. I'm working on that this morning to get that up and running. So right now still looks like Monday 6 a.m. be arrival of the area of circulation within this cone of uncertainty here, but most of the weather models showing it just off the San Diego coast, which would bring, I think, a little bit more rainfall to the Los Angeles and the San Diego area. But we'll see how this plays out, right? It's definitely a rare situation and a unique opportunity here to study this and see how the effects of a lot of moisture plays into a fault system and a plate boundary that's well overdue for the big one. So I'm kind of watching that. Right, two events possible, two major events. Not saying that all this rainfall will cause the San Andreas Fault to rupture, but goodness, put 6 to 10 inches of rainfall on a plate boundary that's 300 years overdue. You just never know. That could be enough lubrication there to trigger it. That's why I'm saying we're definitely be studying this. All right, so we'll continue to watch this, folks, throughout the day. Live stream, a secondary live stream will be up covering this here on this channel. I'm probably going to have a live view of somewhere down in Southern California to observe some of the weather that's going on. There's a couple options I can bring up. So I will be working on that majority of the morning. I should have that up a little bit later this afternoon here. And we'll go from there. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here. Real quick glance at the earthquake activity again, since it's been a very active day. Looks like we got another 5.7 following that 6.3. So I mentioned the strain out here against this area. Watch that. That's a pretty large aftershock for a 6.3. That could be a little bit on the these could be foreshocks of something bigger. This area definitely capable of producing some very large earthquakes up here against the Columbian Trench. A lot of strain that builds up here throughout time. We'll catch you guys back here unless something major happens once I get the we got going up here in Colorado now. Things are very active. Goodness, popping off all over the place. Couple threes here outside of Trinidad showing up within the last well, they just put them up here on the map, but it looks like they popped off here within the last hour. Stay safe out there. Again, we'll be back here on the Hurricane Hilary live stream in just a couple hours. Have a good one.